Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Summer Hikaru Died, Season 1, Episode 9. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we have that opening with Hikaru and Yoshiki at his dad's grave. It's like his dad's funeral, and I'd assume it's like right afterwards. I don't, not unless it's one of those anniversary death things, but I'm assuming it's like right afterwards. And there's a lot there just to think about. I mean, just in the opening itself of like, obviously like Hikaru's trying to be a little jokey. And I think you could probably make the argument that's probably part of his defense mechanism. It's his way to kind of forget. There was it last episode, that line where he was just like, I hate waking up in the morning because every time I wake up in the morning, it's just, I have to be reminded my dad's gone. But I think it's just like, it feels like maybe a larger thing is like, and he uses like comedy as a defense mechanism about, it's his way to kind of like defend himself and just not feel as bad that his dad is going. But I think what benefited him is him and Yoshiki had been friends since they were kids before his dad passed, and it's like throughout that tough time he always had Yoshiki. And I think that's also why he acts so goofy around Yoshiki, because it's like it allows himself to forget, but even more so when he's around Yoshiki, it's like I feel even more comfortable and more okay. I'm able to kind of let go of everything, I think, including a lot of his, not let go of it, but kind of he can bear the weight of like what was expected him of the Endo family as like the only like living son, kind of like head of the family in that capacity type of situation. And obviously that ties into later part of the episode. I'll kind of jump to it and I'll jump back. But the fact is that Yoshiki holds a little funeral for Hikaru because he talks about the fact is because generally there's only three people who know the absolute truth. Yoshiki, the thing inside of Hikaru, and Kurebayashi, but no one else knows the full truth. And fourth maybe by the end of the episode, but for the most part, there are only three that knows like the truth of everything. And so to everyone else, the world just keeps going on. It's the sad thing of you bear the responsibility of knowing my best friend is gone. The person I was in love with is gone. And so now it's a situation of how do I deal with that? Like, and he goes and he like ends up, because I was trying to remember like the grave that was beside. I was like, what was that? I was like, oh right, that was the bird Crowley, right? Wasn't that it? Like the pet, like they had that argument about it, about who didn't feed it, whose responsibility it was. And it's interesting because we have Yoshiki here having a response. Never would have thought like all those years ago when you were there supporting Hikaru through his dad's death and being at his tombstone, and here you are having to be at Hikaru's way sooner. But it's the situation of I need to pay my respects to you because you are gone. It is for the first time he's acknowledged it, but he's always had one foot in, one foot out when it came to Hikaru's death. So it's like, but he's still kind of rationalizing himself by being like, yes, I know Hikaru's gone, but Hikaru's kind of still with me. This is his time, like first fully like mourning him and being like, yo, you're gone, and I'm accepting it. But the thing is, I'll never have to forget you because that Hikaru was always going to be with me. So it's never like I'm ever going to have to worry about it. So I will honor you and, pay my respects to you being gone. But you will always be here in my memories because I'll always be by this person that's Hikaru. So the thing inside of Hikaru ends up, following him. It's like, oh, what are you up to? And it's like, so what's the difference between me and Hikaru? He's like, well, Hikaru was a closed book. But also he was pretty crafty, just kind of breaking down some of those differences. And even the thing inside Hikaru is like, did you like him? And he's like, what? It's like, yeah, like I was just curious. He's like, because the way you kind of got nervous every time you saw my naked body or just kind of me. And he goes like, pulls on his shirt to kind of expose more of his chest. He's like, see, I don't feel anything. He's like, why do you don't get so caught up in like the emotions and stuff like that because you don't have emotions. He's like, yeah, I get it. I know I don't have emotions. But Yoshiki's takeaway is, I have been so busy. I went from fearing you and wanting to keep you near me because you were like Hikaru, so I'm still doing that. But I'm also acknowledging, no, Hikaru is definitely gone, and I'm also going to stop trying to make you human. I want you to just be you. You shouldn't have to fit the mold of what I want you to be just so you can fit in. You should be able to just be yourself. And, obviously there's a deeper meaning behind that. And, I'm sure that also means something for Yoshiki as well, but it's like, the comfortability to be yourself. You shouldn't have to fit the mold of what it means to be a human. You're not human. He's like, in fact, I like that the fact that you're not. There's something nice about you not being human, because I'm sure like when it comes to people, when it comes to humans, there's a lot of complicated stuff. There's a lot to love about humans, and there's also a lot to fear and hate about humans. And so I think him being something from the outside of all of that, I mean, it's intriguing, it's interesting. Definitely made Yoshiki's life a lot more interesting, for better and mainly for worse in some capacities. But there's something like kind of nice about not being, what's the word I'm looking for? Pigeonholed, I guess, to like, as he even says it, like the normalities of humanity, like just kind of like you're a circle, you're a square trying to fit inside of a triangle hole, and that triangle hole is like life, and you shouldn't have to mold yourself just to fit into life. You being you and as unique and different as you are is a good thing. Embrace that and enjoy being who and what you are. Like I said, deeper levels to that, but so that I just wanted to kind of bring that up because that's all connected, but. Circling back to the beginning of the episode, after the cold opening, we have Kurebayashi talking to Yoshiki, and she's like, okay, so this is Hikaru. She's like, wow, you would not think anything. Like, he does look so ordinarily normal. And she's also like, but you didn't heed my warning. He's like, sorry. She's like, well, it's not like I can really be mad at you, because she doesn't chastise Yoshiki about it. She gives her perspective and her warnings, but she tries not to like chastise him, because she even says it herself. She's like, I had a similar situation to Hikaru. My husband came back from the dead, and it seemed like that's what the feeling and vibe we were getting, especially like the first time her and Yoshiki talked, especially like the way she talked about her husband and then what happened like to her son. Like, she even added to the whole thing by saying that Hikaru was different from her husband, because she's like, I know that was my husband's soul, even though he was impure. It just added to the whole, but Hikaru is an enigma, something else entirely. So we never got an answer to how that whole situation resolved, but whatever happened to her son in that moment, the thing inside of her husband, it was still him to some degree, but it like, he was shedding a tear and it closed the door. So... And she was apologizing to her son Iori. It's like, it's my fault, I'm sorry. Because she knew it couldn't last forever. But she was so desperate. Like I said, it adds to like her seeing so much of herself in Yoshiki and his unwillingness to let Hikaru go. So I wonder, like, did she exercise the thing by herself? Did she send it away? And did it ever come back? Like, how did that situation get resolved? And I wonder, is this where maybe some other people in town, came into play? Maybe like some of the elders, maybe. I don't know. There's so much to her story we still don't know either. Cause we still haven't really gotten introduced to this family, because like her son's away. He went somewhere. I mean, not like that's a metaphorical thing of like he's dead or something, but I think he's alive and he's fine. Like I said, my thought was he's Tanaka. We'll find out whether there's any truth to that. But we also don't know anything about her daughter, because like her daughter's supposed to live here, because that's the reason why she stays here, is because she's like, for her mom, not unless it's her mother-in-law. I think she specifically said her mom, but it might have been her mother-in-law and her daughter are the reason why she stays. They're the only reasons why she stays. So the fact is we haven't been introduced to the daughter too. I think that kind of plays into some stuff, because I'll talk about this later, but it feels like Kurebayashi in retrospect is like, is she just kind of keeping it low key? Because it seems like she's out and about. We see her shopping and it's in places around town, but then like, I guess maybe she's keeping it a little more low key. But like I said, we'll get to that later. But she basically explains how she deals with those things. She's able to send them away. But basically, the breakdown is these impurities are, there's a line between life and death. It's a very thin barrier, and these impurities are able to bust through. She's able to send them back. She's not able to send them back forever. Eventually they can probably come back through. She's not killing them either. She's just sending them back, and she's able to kind of do a very like rough patch job of filling in the holes they bust through. And so she brings up right that Hikaru is this lightning rod. And he always has been. Well, the thing inside of him has always been a lightning rod. And when it was up in the mountain, all those things were attracted up into the mountain. Now that Hikaru's here, all those things have followed him. He's not doing all these terrible things in his place, with the exception of what he did to Asako, with her right ear, and then also murdering Matsuda. But other than that, every other terrible thing that's happened are these impurities. So it isn't directly responsible. Hikaru's not directly responsible, but he also is more directly than indirectly responsible for this. Because it's like if he hadn't come down from the mountains, none of this would be happening. But there's a lot more to that. Because once again, Hikaru would have never been in that position if he was never up there on the mountains to begin with. But he had his duty. So it's a little on the village for the Endo family being in charge of doing what it's supposed to do. So, which we'll talk about that later as well. I was trying to remember, she notices the bruise on his arm, and I was like, oh right, the last time they met, he didn't have that, because he didn't get that until episode, near the end of episode 3, if I remember correctly, and they met in episode 2, maybe? It was definitely after they met that he ended up getting that thing. So it's her first time seeing it and recognizing this is something that's drawing these creatures in. But she talks about the thing inside of Hikaru being something that exists outside the realms of life, death, and even rebirth. You're some enigma, so, and they even thought the name Nonuki, but Kurebayashi knows nothing about it. She also explains the thing that came after them. She was like, it was basically a curse on something old and an impurity. So basically, the curse she was sensing is what Tanaka did. He basically contacted, I wonder, it was his hunting dog essentially, but I thought that spirit existed for that purpose. But now in retrospect, it's did he just find a random spirit he could, maybe he found something, he's like, okay, this is an old enough spirit, maybe he sensed the impurity, so he's like, all right, this is a good spirit to grab. It's accessible, it's here, it's old enough, and maybe a little more malleable for me to do what I need to do. So basically used a curse to draw this impurity and use it as a hunting dog. I thought this thing kind of initially served in that way, but I think Tanaka made it into that. I don't know. This thing probably already operated in a similar fashion just by being the impurity that it was, and he just, used it for his own purpose. Once again, he kind of put a leash on it to some extent. It's not the best metaphor, but still. But either way, Kurebayashi says, if things continue the way they are, a lot of people will die. And it's what do you boys want to do about that? And so they're thinking about it because, Hikaru recognizes I'm the reason why all these impurities are here. And as long as I stay here, there's going to be problems. So he's like, I could run away, but Yoshiki can't just abandon everything because he loves this. There's so much he loves here. And so I can't ask him to do that. So for Hikaru, because Yoshiki is so important to him and there's so much here in town that's so important to him, that because it's important to you, it's important to me. So he's going to stay here and try and protect Yoshiki and this town. And Yoshiki wants to make sure that Hikaru can stay too. It's I told him, no matter what happens, I'm going to stay by his side. I'm never going to leave his side. So we'll try to make this work as best as we can. And Kurebayashi's like, okay then, boys, we're in this together. I'll help you however I can. She's like, these are good kids. And it's so interesting when she looks at her psychic, her medium sense or whatever, and how, if you notice, and I think it's just interesting, I don't know if there's anything to it, when she was holding Hikaru's hand, if you look, and I don't know if just did the animation for it, it's he doesn't seem like he has anything connecting his hand and his wrist. I don't know if there was anything significant with that, but it just seemed like his hand was floating a little bit above his forearm. There was no wrist there, and I was I don't know whether I'm reading too much into that. That seemed interesting, but that might not have been anything. But also Kurebayashi warned Hikaru, it's like, yo, don't let Yoshiki get any more mixed than he already is, because it's already bad enough, but any more, and he'll never go back to the human world. Which I'm sure there's something enticing about that, maybe for this thing, because it's like, oh, maybe we can exist together outside of humanity, but it's also like there's so much in the human world Yoshiki cares about, so I would never want to take that opportunity and option away from him. So wants to protect like as much of that human normal life that he cares about, because once again, he cares about it, so I care about it. And also I love having fun with Yoshiki when it comes to normal regular human stuff, even though I'm not human. Jumping into the Tanaka of it all, his hunting dog, like she said, she can't kill these things. She just sent it away. But I guess Tanaka just kind of basically yanked on its leash and kind of brought it back. And he's like, okay. And it rushes into him and it shows him what he sees. So he sees Yoshiki talking to Hikaru, and it's like, okay, cool. So this is it. So he now knows what this all is. He probably already had some inkling being around Yoshiki, but now he has a clear face of what the thing is, like that it's inside of Hikaru, so he's planning to strike. At the same time, like Yoshiki and Hikaru are continuing their investigation into things. What they learned from Matsura's daughter last episode about him once being this god that was offered stuff, and then, a famine happened and he was viewed as a cursed god, and they're like, did they seal me or it up into the mountains? And there's, what was it Hachi or Hichi that Hikaru's grandfather was mentioning? Part of the conversation also came down to, the self-realization on Hikaru's part, or rather the thing inside of him, thinking like and realizing, well, because I'm here, I'm drawing more attention, and maybe I should go back to the mountains. That's the only way we could lead those things away, because we need to get them away from hurting people in town. But Yoshiki was like, no, you don't have to do that. Like, don't ever talk like that again. We'll find a way to deal with this without like that having to be something you even have to deal. We'll find out what's happening, why you're drawing these impurities, and fix that situation. But it's, once again, like, he never wants them to be separated. So it's like, don't even think something crazy like that ever again. So just further proof of his desperation, of even with his acceptance of everything, he made a promise, because it's not just about Hikaru, which he knows like he would be alone, and which is ironic considering the real Hikaru's final wish was like Yoshiki not wanting to be alone, and now Yoshiki trying to do everything to make sure Hikaru isn't alone, but also it's also in a selfish need to not be alone himself. There's layers to that as well. There's just that loneliness kind of goes both ways. They still never visited old man Takeda, so this was their opportunity to go do that, considering they got distracted in the end of last episode before they could go over. And obviously his daughter-in-law was like, oh, he's been sick, so you might want to keep a distance. Didn't want to like show anyone to him at the time. But then they dropped Korebayashi's name. It's interesting because even she was like, yo, if you need to like do something, drop my name. And that was what got them into the door, which I'm like, because it turns out old man Takeda was looking for her. He needed a medium to basically, I guess because after everything with Hikaru failing to do what he needed to do, obviously with everything going on, they needed someone to complete the ritual. And that's why I'm like, who is she specifically? Like, is she connected to this in some shape or form? Like, I'm curious, like, did she have a family? Like, could her husband have been connected to this stuff? Like, we don't know what role she plays, but for them to know about her and her as a medium, because I'm like, why haven't they come to her before now? And that's why I was bringing up earlier of, she's just been out and about, like, living her life. It's not like she's hidden, but I do think it's interesting that, like, once again, we haven't seen her mother, or what, like I said, whether it was her mother or her mother-in-law, but also we haven't seen her daughter either. So it's like, it is interesting, and I'm like, is she hiding out? Like, is she hiding in plain sight type of thing of like, they've been looking for her, but like, she's made herself not available to them? But then like, the moment Hikaru and Yoshiki need, she's like, no, go ahead and name drop me if need be. So that got them into the door. But then like old man Takeda is like flipping out. He's like, yeah, I'm next on the chopping block. He mentioned that like in the first episode, like after he found out Matsura died. And so he kind of goes on this like ranty diatribe about everything, that basically a lot of this he says is the Endo family's fault. The reason why they have to do the whole whatever the ritual is and their role in it is apparently them going to the mountains to apologize for something they did in the past. We got some flashes of it, like people hanging. There was one flash that seemed like it was someone. It seemed like it was a horse, and like one of the hooves was covered in blood, and we saw someone laying down. I don't know if someone's head got caved in by like a horse like stomping on it or something. And then there was another thing which there was an episode a while back. There was like some flashback that showed someone that looked a lot like Hikaru. I think it was his ancestor with like a severed head or something maybe. And I guess maybe this might have something to do with what old man Takeda was talking about, because they did something in the past, specifically like was it 1749 when the famine supposedly happened. But he says like it wasn't a famine. It's something they did. They did something that set all this in motion, and I guess that played into Nonuki going from being a god of blessing to a, cursed god. There's so much story like unknown, and I wonder if Takeda wanted to, like maybe even like his son and the other elders don't even know. Maybe like Matsura and Omen Takeda are the only ones who are old enough to remember the full story, and everyone else has kind of been given fractures of it, or maybe they do know the story. I don't know. That becomes a question of how much, who knew what when type of situation. So he'd even brought up the point, the reason why they're called the Endo family too is stems from whatever ancestral thing they did in the past to put the village in a situation. Like I said, they're making it seem like that family is at the heart of everything. So that's why it's their responsibility and stuff. And he starts freaking out more and more, and to the point like Hikaru was like, it's too late, like, oh, this is bad, it's already in him. And I'm like, it seems like he's getting possessed, and like his transformation reminds me, this is kind of a spoiler, but it's not really, it means nothing if you've never seen it. There's a character in Sweet Home who randomly like grows a whole bunch of hair when he enters his monstrification, basically when characters in that story turn into monsters. Kind of remind me of that, but it's not like, this character grows full cousin It from the Addams family, whereas like Takeda didn't. But he starts shifting, he draws the sword, and immediately my brain starts going like, what the hell is going on? I was like, did he get possessed by something? And then like he grabs the sword and stuff, and I'm like, and then Tanaka showing up made me go like, wait, is this because of the gift Tanaka left? Like, was that last episode he left that, or was that the episode before last? I can't remember. That might have been episode 8 when he left that. He's like, oh, it's a gift or whatever, or a good luck charm. He said something like that. I'm wondering, did Tanaka leave a second, like, was that his contingency plan? Because it's like, right, old man Tanaka was worried about, not Tanaka, sorry, old man Takeda was worried about being the second victim or whatever. It's like, oh, it's going to find me eventually, and yada, 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 so on and so forth. So I guess Tanaka ended up using him as kind of like, oh, if you ever get around this thing, I'm going to basically have you be an alarm system, and you're going to, like, you're basically going to be a sleeper agent, and you're going to activate, I think, because later on, he's more focused on Hikaru than he is Takeda. He's like, oh, I knew the old man was in danger. Not unless it is a thing of the timing just happened to be what it is, and he ended up getting possessed at that moment. Maybe an impurity was drawn by Hikaru and it attacked him. And maybe it's already been trying to attack and get at, that's why he's been sick lately. Maybe it had already been trying to get to him, and then it just happened to come out now because it was like snapped into focus because Hikaru was there, like I said, or this was part of Tanaka's trap. I don't know. Because he happened to leave, like, that sword there, and he told them, like, what was that, episode 4, maybe? Maybe a little bit later, that he handed that sword over saying, like, it cuts spirits, it doesn't cut people. But anyway, he shows up, grabs the sword, and he's like, "Oh yeah, Hikaru Endo, I've been looking. Nice to meet you." He's like, "Oh, I want to test something out," and he slices off Hikaru's head, and you see like the blackness on like energy or what, or shadowiness that's on the blade, and like Yoshiki's freaking out because he's like, "Yo, are you dead?" Because twofold of, well, he knows Hikaru is in a weakened state now, and it's like he has made it clear, like, I can be destroyed, like, if something happens to that thing inside of you, which, I mean, as long as nothing does, he should be fine, which it seems like he is, because it seems like he's in a process of regenerating. So I don't even think Tanaka could kill him, because that sword might affect spirits, but it's also like he's so strong even in his weakened state, he exists outside of life, death, and rebirth. So that sword, which would hurt spirits, which he technically is, but he's something more that it can't kill him. It could probably like hurt him and discombobulate him. Like you'd probably have to like cut him into pieces and scatter his body for it to like not kill him, but that's the only way to stop the full regeneration process. But like I said, it seemed like he was in a process of regenerating. Something I also noticed, and I had to go back and look at the endings of every episode, like the proper ending, because I always watch it. I just never noticed it till this episode. If you look, every time like it's the thing inside it, like it's not the real Hikaru, but the thing inside of Hikaru, every time you see it, you'll notice it has lines all the way around its neck from when Hikaru got his, because obviously that's set in the future, because some of those are Yoshiki hanging out with the proper real Hikaru, and then like part of that is also like, yeah, like the final shot is, it's the thing already inside of Hikaru at that point in time. So this is supposed to be them at some point post all of this going out to the beach and like, or at least going out, hanging out together, leaving together. I don't know if that's supposed to go and be like the last thing in the show or something, but I noticed it a little bit this time with the ending. I was like, does he have a like mark on his neck? And then I noticed in the very last shot, I'm like, I was like, was that always there? Did they retroactively add that now that it's happened in the story? I'm like, it probably was always there, and I just never know. I just happened to notice it this episode, so that's why I'm like, that's why I should have gone back to check older episodes to see if that was always there, because I was like, oh, like kind of winking and foreshadowing to that, because that ending is supposed to be like timeline wise supposed to be like after the events of all this, especially if his neck's already cut. So I guess that's also implying like that mark will never go away. It will always be there. Like I don't know, because it might be a thing of Hikaru now probably has to wear like keep his shirt buttoned up all the way and never show that part of his neck, because you'll notice that like, oh, what the hell is that on your neck? It's like, oh, no, nothing, that's just where some guy decapitated me with a spirit cutting sword. I'm so fascinated to see where the next episode takes us with this, especially with like this, what this proper confrontation is going to look like now. Like now that they've met face to face now, like what will he do now? I mean, we know he's here for a job, and also Hikaru can't do anything to kill him because he's in a weakened state. So does Yoshiki give him back the piece of himself so that he can fight this guy? Because it's like, I'd rather you kill him than die. But because he also was saying like, right, no matter who you kill, like I will carry that sin with you, and if it's for self-preservation, like will he do that? There's a lot coming out of this episode. Also like old man Takeda, like is he going to be okay? Like is there any reversing that or saving him, or is it already too late? So many questions at the end of this episode. I'm so fascinated to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.